This is Kirstin Bailey, and I'm going to start my presentation in just a minute. Okay, thanks for joining us. Today I'm going to talk about our research project that was mentioned in the Center for Rural Affairs newsletter and a little bit more about some upcoming opportunities to learn more about beekeeping. The Center for Rural Affairs was established in 1973 in northeast Nebraska. I personally work out of an office in Brainerd, Nebraska. We exist to build more vibrant rural communities, and the Center for Rural Affairs does everything from assisting rural entrepreneurs with business development. They do some policy work. We connect with beginning farmers and help them on a variety of issues they may have. And we also work to create welcoming and equal opportunity communities. We go live with the Rural Rapport every Tuesday at noon right here on our Facebook. A little bit more about me. I am a beekeeper. I have 12 hives in 4 different locations along eastern Nebraska, some as far south as Martell and as far north as Bruno, Nebraska. Today I want to talk about our research project and go into detail a little bit with some of the hives that we are testing. We want to find some hives that are easier to move and manipulate so that more people can become beekeepers, but we also want to make sure that we are promoting and finding hives that do produce a lot of honey so that they can still be successful businesses. The first hive that I'm going to talk about is the traditional Langstroth hive. These are what you see when you think about beekeeping. These are the hives that people use. They're the most common. They haven't really changed much in the past 100 years, but each one of these boxes is called a deep. They are full of frames, so you can see there's a top view picture there. So the frames go across and they hang down in front of where the hive would be. They are a standard size, and to get honey you put supers, is what they're called, on top of the deeps. And supers are a little bit shallower. Each one of these deeps can weigh 40 to 60 pounds depending on the time of the year. So here we can see a beekeeper with hives, and we have on the left 2 deeps, and then we have 3 supers. He's removing one from the top. And so this is what beehives usually look like. And you can see that these are off the ground. They can get quite tall, and so you're lifting a lot of weight from the top down, and it can be quite strenuous. Here's another example of that same beekeeper, and he is now on a ladder to check the hives and to check these things, so adding a little bit more difficulty to getting these supers off of the deeps, because now you're up on the ladder. You're having to lift weight up and down off the ladder or hand it down to somebody. So these are some of the problems with the traditional Langstroth hive. One of the hives that we are researching and testing is called the long Langstroth hive. So instead of going up, it goes horizontally instead of vertically. You don't have to lift boxes off of the hive to inspect the brood area, which is where all the baby bees are, and it can hold anywhere between 20 to 30 frames depending on how long they are. So you're not having to manipulate as much weight to get down to get a bigger picture of what's happening in your hive. And some of the beekeepers in our research project are adding supers in the middle of the hive. So I'll show you a picture of that, but they aren't still having to lift it as much, but that's just a personal preference. So like I was talking about adding supers to the middle, there's a picture of that on the left. And these Langstroths are about waist high, so you're still lifting them off of here if you would like. But again, that's a personal preference. And then on the right is a yellow long Langstroth, and this one is just the beekeepers just keeping it as is. So they're harvesting from the back of the hive where the honey is, and they're not having to lift boxes on and off of it. Another research method that we're looking into is using shallows as a hive, or supers. So these are the things, the boxes that honey is traditionally kept in, and they're about half as tall as the deeps, and they weigh about half as much. And they go on top of the deeps, like I said, for honey production, but we are looking at using them in place of the deeps. Each super can weigh between 30 to 40 pounds, and it kind of varies if it's being used for honey storage or if the bees are using it to house their baby bees. The baby bees are lighter than the honey. So here's a picture of it being used, and you can see this beekeeper has 3 supers that they're keeping the bees in entirely. So there's no deeps. It's about half as heavy for her to lift these on and off. So it's a little bit easier to manipulate. We have been finding that the bees fill these up quite fast, so you have to kind of be on top of their growth so that they don't feel too congested. Another hive that we're looking into is the Nuke hive. So nukes are what bees can be sold in. They are 5 frames across instead of 10, so they're half as wide. And they're made out of wood, but you can also get plastic ones. The ones we're using are made out of wood, and they're sold at the beginning of the spring to get your hive started. These boxes each can weigh between 20 to 40 pounds, again, depending on if they have the baby bees, the brood in them, or if they have honey in them. So you just keep stacking them up, and what we're finding with this is that, again, you really have to stay on top of it because they get quite tall as the hive grows in size, and they can fall over. So the picture on the left is a Nuke colony that is 5 boxes high, and on the right you see that same Nuke colony. It was 6 boxes high, and it fell over and obviously disrupted some things. Luckily the bees were all okay. They were able to put the Nuke back together and pop it back up, and they are now using a support like braces on the back, and I think they may even use some ratchet straps to keep them together and in one place. This was after a windstorm that we had in July. The final hive system that we're kind of looking at is the top bar hive. They are again oriented horizontally. They have sloped sides, so the bees build comb in this V or triangle shape that you see on the right. There are not standardized frames for the top bar, so the bees are making their own comb, whatever shape they would like. And the typical product that comes from these type of hives is cut comb. There is no need to lift boxes to inspect the hive. You can get a picture of what's happening by just going through it systematically rather than lifting things off and looking through it. It does take the bees a little bit longer to grow in this system, since they're having to spend a lot of resources building all of the comb. And if the bars are not spaced correctly, the bees can build cross comb that will need to be removed before you can inspect it. So here are some pictures. There's 2 different lids on here. That's the difference. We have flat tops here on the left, and then we have a sloped top on the right. And then here's one of the beekeepers in the research project, and she's holding up some of the comb. So they've drawn it out, here on the left, and so you can kind of see this is really, really nice brood pattern. Like, this looks like a really healthy colony, and so she's happy to see that. And then on the right is kind of like how the comb would look inside the hive. So it's just in front, and we have it oriented so you can see how they would have it in that system. So this was just kind of a little bit more information that was in our newsletter. I kind of wanted to show some pictures along with it so you could see the research in action. We're in our first year. This project goes for 3 years. So we're hoping to kind of get some harvest amounts in the next 2 years and to see, most importantly, how they overwinter. Our winters are pretty erratic, as I'm sure all of you know, so the temperature swings can be quite extreme. And that's kind of hard to keep bees in extreme temperature changes. It's better if it just would get cold and stay cold, but we don't have that happen that much anymore. But if you want to know more about bees and a little bit more about what I was talking about, we are going to do an Explore Beekeeping class via Zoom on September 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. You can register by emailing me, and I've included my email address on the slide so you can see it, and we'll be presenting that class in English, and then we'll have a separate Spanish breakout room. So if Spanish is your preferred language, you'll be able to take the class there, and we'll be just going through kind of a little bit more about how bees structure their society, and we'll talk about the equipment and what you need to do to get started, just so that you can kind of try to get an idea of what it takes to become a beekeeper. I want to thank everybody for attending. If there's questions, I'll answer them in the chat. And I hope you're able to join us next Tuesday for another Rural Rapport. Thank you so much.